Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. This is your second installment of Idea Chats. Today, I have with me Timothy, and we're going to be discussing autism. However, firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land I am on today, the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations. I would like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples viewing today. I would also like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So, Timothy, thank you for joining me today. It's very wonderful for you to discuss this with me. Would you like to just introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yes, I'm Timothy. I am currently studying a Bachelor of Communications, majoring in Public Relations. Um, that's me.
So, how did you get into communications?
Initially, I started studying journalism when I graduated high school. It was an idea suggested by my career counselor. And it was just one of those things that just felt not 100% for me. So I did a few PR electives and ended up changing. The classic took a gap year, which did turn into gap years. And then when I decided to go back and study, I was really confident with what I wanted to do. I love the creative side to it. But there's also actually quite a fair bit of data as well, which is a huge interest to me.
Yeah, like data and analytics are always a fun thing.
Yes, and
Not for everybody, but
I don't know. Sometimes when I talk about data or that, I love looking at numbers and everything. And when you find other people as well who also find data interesting, it gets really exciting.
okay, so as I sort of explained before, so what I like to do with the interviews is just ask a series of questions just to get to know you a bit better. And then ask a series of questions around the actual topic we're discussing today. So first off, what is your favorite smell?
Um, so I love the smell of, I guess, pretty much anything citrus. I don't know. I have like essential oils and like the diffuser, and I love like the orange, or there's like one called wild citrus, which is really nice. Um, but I also really enjoyed like the artificial smell of like grapes, like in lollies.
Yep.
So I think maybe anything fruity I enjoy.
Okay. Fair enough. Do you have like a cologne you wear?
Yeah, I wear Bulgari black.
Okay.
It, I was traveling Europe with my mum a few years ago, and I was in the journey of finding a new scent, and they had like this trial, and so I had it, and I was like using all the different ones, and then someone at work kept commenting that I smelt nice every single time I wore this one particular one, and I even tested it a few times where I was like, okay, I'll wear it for like 2 days in a row, then not one day, and then wear it again, and still got a compliment like all those days. Um, and so I was like, yeah, this is my scent now.
Cute. So next question, what is a little known fact about you?
This one was hard. Is a bit hard to think about because I am kind of an open book, and I think especially due to COVID, icebreakers have been like a big thing. So it's like trying to think. It's like, well, is this little known about me, or do I talk about this all the time? But when I was I think like 5 or 6, I went to the football with my mum, my sister, my sister's friend. It was like very early on in the season, and there was a guy filming the audience at the beginning of the game. Um, I had like my face painted and everything like that, and kind of like mum was like, "Oh, go up to like the gate area," and so I did. Then at the beginning of every episode of the footy show, for the rest of the season, there was like a brief clip of me in the intro.
Cute. What team?
Then I was a supporter of the doggies. um,
I don't even know what that means.
the Western Bulldog.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
But I don't really follow football. Like, disclaimer, after I did that little thing at the front, I was probably most likely sitting on the ground at our chairs playing with my toy cars. So,
Okay, cute.
yeah.
Okay, so what is your favorite suburb in Melbourne, like, or Nam?
um, it is probably St Kilda East. I've lived like all around Melbourne basically, and it's a really nice. The community is really nice. So it's got a very like a lot of like a big Jewish community, and I just remember being there. They actually would have kind of like patrols who would just be kind of just checking on it at night time. So, if you had to walk at like when the sun's gone down home, you felt safe, and it was an they're an incredibly friendly community. I remember when it was there, it's Jewish New Year, and um, everyone's kind of just vibes felt really like happy, and people would be like, "Oh, are you Jewish?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm not." And they're like, "Oh, Happy New Year anyway." And it was just quite nice.
Hmm.
It's also very close to a lot of areas that you can just like walk, and it was like really beautiful. I liked walking to like St Kilda Botanical Gardens, or there's like Ripponlea Estate, which is like an old building. Yeah, it's really, I don't know, it's really nice. It was a really nice, my favorite area that I've lived in Melbourne so far.
Cute. What are your hobbies?
Now, this is definitely something everyone who knows me knows I love, and it's probably I have a huge interest in the Titanic. Wildly obsessed ever since I was 5. I and ironically, tomorrow would mark 110 years since the Titanic hit the iceberg. So
Yeah.
good timing. But yeah, I've just gone. I've just, I don't know. I love researching it and everything like that, and I'd love to go see some of the places where it was last, where it was built. And my sister lives in Cork, which was the last place it stopped. Well, the last land it saw, I guess.
Did you watch the documentary that James Cameron did like 20 years after filming?
Yes,
It was so amazing.
it's because there were a few that came out, and I can't remember if he did another one as well, but I think it was where he had all the experts, and he kind of like reevaluated how realistic his film was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was even like a theory portrayed there, talking about the visibility of the iceberg, where because they say that the binoculars were not given to the lookouts because it was either locked in a cupboard or just taken off the ship, and
Yeah.
people say would have been able to see it. However, more recent times have been able to confirm there's like an illusion created with that type of weather. It's kind of like a opposite of a mirage, and it uh, would have blocked the vision anyway. So it doesn't matter if you had binoculars.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Okay, so what are you watching at the moment?
Yes, I am rewatching The Good Place.
Love it.
I have got my mum to. I got my mum to watch it, so she's enjoying it. But we're almost actually done. We're just got the last few episodes, and that'll probably be done tonight. Um, but I'm also watching the new Marvel series on Disney, Moon Knight, and The Girl from Plainville. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
it's it's based on a true story. It's a bit of a sad one. So it's definitely one that you kind of need to be in the right headspace to watch. but it's so far good, so far interesting.
Okay, cute. So now we come to the serious questions of the segment. So, talking about autism. So, how did you find out that you have autism?
Yes. So this one, I first had a suspicion when I was 19 and I was dating this guy, and he was both autistic and ADHD, and I remember we were driving and just talking, and it was very early on with us dating, and he was like, "Are you on the spectrum?" And yeah, he pretty much just then kind of said, just like, oh, there's just a few things that just as similar to what he how he experienced life, and got me thinking. I'd thought about ADHD for years before that, but it was actually from uh, God, how old am I now? I'm 25, so it was probably like 5 years after that when I was 24, and through TikTok, kind of brought up the thought again. It was just seeing a lot of people talk about it, and hearing about their experience, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds a lot like me. And it was also, it pushed me to do more reading about it myself. And yeah, so I made contact with my psychiatrist, and yeah, a few months later, there came the diagnosis.
Only a few months. That's good to know. So it was actually quite interesting. So in preparation for doing an interview and just generally like reading up about autism, I started to read things and sort of saw signs of when like things in my childhood that I was like, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, that sounds familiar. And it was actually when I reached out to Jacinta, um, literally when I had a phone call with her, I had just done about 8 online tests. And all had come back like, oh, maybe you should go see a medical professional because you're on the spectrum. So it's been really interesting for me to go through this journey. So I've just started talking to my doctor about it. But in researching, looking up, it's just sort of made me realize that possibly I am on the spectrum as well. So that's been a great thing for this.
Definitely a positive.
Yeah.
It's such a huge. It can be so like your life can sometimes have like a lot of questions, and you might be like, oh, why am I like this? And then when you kind of have that realization about how you're like, how you find out, you're like, oh wow, okay, this actually explains so much. um and so thankful for the internet today, because a lot of different, um especially with like neurodivergency, I don't know if that's a word or if I just made that up.
Yeah, I
um
always get that one incorrect as well, don't I?
um there's a lot that just kind of goes misrepresented.
Yeah.
And I I know before I dated that guy, I had a completely wrong idea about what autism actually looked like, because I'm basing it how it is portrayed in films and TV. And usually they are sometimes either completely wrong or the extremes.
Yeah.
Um, and even like more recently, I kind of have actually come to an understanding that I'm pretty sure I'm also dyslexic, because there's just, once again, dyslexia can look differently, but the way they always talk about it is like, oh, the letters like mix around, and I was like, I'm not literally seeing letters swap around. um and yeah, so it's really great that all these resources are out there.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the most important thing you want people to know about living with autism?
um I think the fact is that it is so different for so many different people. um it is not going to be the same experience for every person, and it's and kind of going with that as well is the acknowledgement of people struggling or their difficulties. While it is great to celebrate autism and celebrate the uniqueness, it's also just as important to acknowledge the difficulties and what can make some things for me might seem like or might be a big deal to me, but to someone who's neurotypical, they're being like, but like that doesn't make any sense. Like, why does this matter so much to you? And so kind of acknowledging as well the difficulties is also just as important. I don't know, I think there's a big push for talking about only the positives of these things, and I think it's good. It is a good initiative to want to talk about positivities, but don't only talk about positivities. Acknowledge struggles.
So I did watch your video and discussing how RMIT has been quite inclusive around your neurodiversity. It's quite interesting. So like I'm studying as well at the moment, and like you saying that, like one of my things is the way my uni has sort of written my assignments. I really just don't like it. So they've asked me to do an essay that's a business case, but because those things don't match, like I don't want to do it. And everybody's like, but like you understand what it is. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't like it, and so I don't want to do it. And it's like those little things, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like autism's definitely there for you. But it's one of those weird things of like that wouldn't seem like an issue to majority of people, but it's like those words don't match, so I don't want to do it. And people are like, well, what is that about?
Yeah, it's it is complete. Like I completely, fully, 110% relate to that. Like even sometimes, I don't know. Like I remember there was this one time where we were dividing up like tasks for a group assignment, and one of the tasks was just a color I didn't agree with. I don't know. It was just not a friendly. It was a very harsh color, and so like I actively avoided that, like doing any kind of work with that, just because it was like, it would actually cause me like a little bit of stress, and I was like, I need something that's not stressful, and so it's like kind of like little things like that where, once again, that's not something that everyone with autism is going to experience. So yeah, it's just kind of rambling on and saying the same thing again in a loop.
Okay, so next question. So how can leaders and managers be more inclusive with people with autism? Obviously, just from your experience, not talking for everybody.
Yeah, that I think kind of also a bit plays into a bit of what we've just been talking about, where how it is going to be different for other people, and taking the time to not make assumptions. And even if you have an experience with someone else with autism, kind of meeting someone else, they may have completely different needs. And so that taking the time to kind of have an open mind. And I think sometimes we don't like to admit we might be wrong or have done something wrong. And so I think it's also important to allow yourself to be wrong. And that goes with absolutely everything in life. But yeah, allow yourself to have made a mistake, because when you can allow yourself to have made a mistake, then you can learn from it. So it's just as important to learn from it. Yeah. So I think that's probably I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. I think one of the questions that I forgot to put in was what is the biggest misconception around autism? So obviously you've said like um everybody's the same, and like one of the things that I've noticed is like growing up in the 90s, like everything portrayed in the media was like Mercury rising, where it's like you like a kid goes into like a massive meltdown if something doesn't go right. And I think that is what everybody's concept of what autism is, and that's where it sort of like sits. But it, obviously like um on a spectrum, it's like obviously people go from extreme to milds. Um, do you think that's the biggest misconception, or
Yeah, I think everybody, as much as we kind of say it's a spectrum, and people these days kind of, I don't know, I feel like that is definitely the language people use. It's like, oh yeah, they're on the spectrum. Um, but the even when people say that, I think it's just this, people have like an idea on where autism lands on the spectrum, and they just expect every autistic person to be like that. And it can be quite a fair bit what comes from movies. And I think a lot of people, the term high functioning is quite controversial. And I think the actual diagnosis is on levels. You've got level 3 depending on the amount of assistance you will need in life. And so what was previously known as Asperger's or high functioning autism is known as level 1, where you'll be able to get through life only needing a little assistance. But that doesn't mean that you don't have any struggles. And so people kind of expect that if you aren't as, don't need as much as assistance in life, that you're, you don't have any almost.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know. So what do you want to do when you grow up?
I have so many answers for this question. Obviously, I'm studying public relations. So that's one thing I want to be, working in PR. I love being creative. So films have also been something that's been an interest of mine, and acting as well. And so you, depending on what area you go into it, you do sometimes will be like filming stuff, making videos and everything like that. So I think just somewhere where I could be creative in like some kind of film sense would be probably the dream. The ultimate dream would be like famous actor who writes and directs his own stuff.
Right, so we're just shooting for the stars now. Cute.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so my last question, what has changed for you since your diagnosis?
The biggest change has been a self-acknowledgement. It's been, growing up, I knew I was different, and I would just try so hard to fit in. And for people who aren't familiar, there's the term masking, where it's essentially you almost create a different personality to be accepted. And I've realized since my diagnosis about how much I cause myself extra stress and unhappiness through masking. And it's a big journey to take away a lot of that. But I, um, I've started, I guess some of the big things that I've done is I've started stimming, which once again, if anyone's not familiar, it's self stimulation where everybody will do it. So an example could be like twirling your hair or even biting your fingernails. But for people who are on the spectrum, it's a bit more. It's more repetitive, and they can rely a lot more on it. And I would hide a lot of it or try and do more discreet stuff. But since my diagnosis is, I've been kind of allowing myself to be more open with it. And an example has even been like vocal stims, which it's still scary, and I can't do it really in front of most people yet. But even just doing it by myself or with some people I'm comfortable with, it's really nice. And for a lot of it, I've been able to, for me, it's taken, even though things that I'm like, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm different. And before I used to be so anxious about it. Now, because I know why I'm different, I don't have that anxiety because I just feel more comfortable with myself.
Well, that sounds really lovely. I'm so happy for you then. So thank you very much for joining me today. Even for me, this has been so informative, and I think this is the thing, like breaking down a stereotype of what we think something is always exceptionally important. And so I thank you very much for joining me, Timothy. So thank you all for joining us. Join in next month where we discuss just general mental health. Thank you.
Thank you.